Hey everyone, Kathy the Vegan Prepper here, and today we're going to be discussing gratitude, anger, the coexisting of seemingly opposing emotions in difficult times, and perspective, and just sort of my thoughts on a bunch of this stuff that I've been seeing lately. So let's go ahead and get into it. Do-do-do, do-do-do, vegan prepper. Do-do-do, do-do-do, vegan prepper. Here we are, super early in the morning. It's about 5 o'clock. I've been enjoying some time by myself. A lot of times I'm up anywhere between 4:30, just to get some time alone. And then that is, it becomes precious to me. So this morning, though, I thought that I would share some of that time with you guys and talk about some of the things going on in the world today and my perspective on on just a lot of the shenanigans. This has been coming up because obviously there's a lot of injustice going on. Horrible, war, whatever. Whether whatever side you believe, whatever. This is the furthest thing from a political video that I think ever could possibly be. I'm definitely not. I never intend to start a fight or whatever. We're just sort of sharing perspective here, because I think it's a very important thing to keep in mind. It is something that I've been seeing a lot lately, especially because I do go to such a good church, and it's full of the goodness of God and being positive and looking forward, looking ahead. And so we do speak, good things. We're not afraid of rising gas prices, and we still expect the goodness of God, right? Like, I would have lost heart unless I had believed that I would see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. We have, a lot of really great habits. And so we have a lot of people who are attempting, or not necessarily attempting, in their own lives. I believe they may genuinely be at a place of just gratitude and peace. And I think that's great. I'm seeing a lot of things on Facebook right now because I'm old. I'm still on Facebook, so I'm not old, but I'm just saying, I'm young enough to be on Facebook, but I guess I'm old enough. I've been on Facebook for 15 years or something, so it's been a long time. But anyway, I just see things pop up, and I get the spirit behind what these people are posting, but at the same time, I have, like I said, I have a different perspective, and I want to talk about it. I want to talk about this call to gratitude over situations. Almost like you're not allowed to be angry, or if you're angry, then that means that you're not truly grateful. Or if you are raging at the injustice of what's happening, then that means that you don't have a proper and healthy perspective on things. So I just want to read a couple of posts that I have seen. And so this is it's a picture with high gas prices, and I'm not at all criticizing anybody who posted these things. Again, I think that the heart is good, and even the message of these things is good, but and it's also potentially not the best. So we're kind of going to talk about that. Okay. Let me read you the post without further ado. So today I stopped and filled up my car, and I was thankful. Thankful that I have a car. Thankful that I have money to buy gas. Thankful that there are no warplanes flying over me. Thankful that I will be eating soon. Thankful that all of my loved ones are safe and sound. Thankful that I live in a country where I have the freedom to do so many things. Oh man. So thankful for that. Thankful that the air I breathe is not filled with smoke and gunpowder. Thankful that I will sleep in silence and wake up to a beautiful day. I think it's time that we all be a lot more thankful and definitely more grateful. And I didn't say, but this post was superimposed over a picture of, at that time, high gas prices, which was $4.15 a gallon. I was like, I should have filled up when it was $4.15 a gallon. Anyway. Okay. Be grateful, right? Grateful that you have a car. grateful that you have money to buy gas for now, because it hasn't all run out because of buying gas. Thankful that there are no warplanes flying over me. Thankful that I'll be eating soon. Thankful that all my loved ones are safe and sound. That one hit me really hard as, again, prepper. It's like, are they? For how long are they safe and sound? Are people even remotely preparing, even still? Like, are we so focused on trying to make sure that we're staying in a positive frame of mind? Some people, other people are definitely not even trying. But it's like, to be kind of trying to stay in that positive frame of mind and then completely ignore what's going on and make preparations for potential bad things to happen. This is not fear, I believe. It's wisdom. And in fact, I believe it's bravery. We're going to discuss that. I have a new conclusion about prepping, where people say that preppers live in fear, and I actually believe that preppers are brave, and that's why they prep. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, thankful the air I breathe is not filled with smoke and gunpowder. Like, obviously, we're grateful for all of these things. Obviously. And I am upset at the injustice of rising gas prices, rising food prices, what's going on in the world. I am upset at the injustice of tyrants making decisions that are negatively affecting the vast majority of people on this earth. I am upset. I am angry at the fact that people have lost their lives because of tyranny and injustice. And they do so every day, not just in Ukraine, not just in other war-torn areas of the world. I'm angry at the oppression of women, right, by the Taliban. I'm angry at child human trafficking. I'm angry about these things. And I am grateful that my family is safe and sound. Like, I feel like these things can and should coexist inside of us. And let me go ahead and read you one more post. This post is even more dramatic. It is a picture, and it's a picture of, it looks like a mother and her child, possibly Ukrainian. They appear Caucasian, like huddled under a blanket, like in a difficult situation, like kind of in a dirty, difficult situation, and they're just huddled under a blanket. And so this one, let's go ahead and see this one. I may have to pay more to fill up my tank, but I'm not yet having to find shelter for my kids underground. I love that they even put yet in there. Anyway, I'm gonna read it before I talk about it. Okay, I may have to pay more to fill up my tank, but I'm not yet having to find shelter for my kids underground. Perspective. I may have to pay more to fill up my tank, but I have a car to drive. Perspective. I may have to pay more for the food my family eats, but at least I can feed them. Perspective. Meals at my favorite local restaurant may cost a little more, but I'm helping that family in my community so they can continue to feed and take care of their family. Perspective. I'm not having to go to work at the largest nuclear power plant in my country while being held at gunpoint the entire time I'm there. Perspective. Start this Monday, I guess this was Monday, looking at things differently and being thankful for what you do have. So, this is the one I think that really got me. So I think it's possible I have a different perspective than a lot of people out there. So I've shared on the channel before, I came from a horrible, abusive situation in my childhood. I actually got taken away from my parents. I have seen and witnessed awful things from the time I was tiny. So people talk about, you guys, so like, let me give you maybe an insight into some of my perspective. People talk about the innocence of childhood and when everything was nice and you were safe and all of that stuff. I have no idea what that is. I literally cannot remember a time in my life that was innocent, that wasn't full of terror or fear. I can't remember. Like I said, it's very early in the morning. Sorry, I'm having like a little cough things. I don't remember that. I literally have no idea what it would be like to have a sweet, nice, peaceful upbringing. That's just not my reality. So that's some of my perspective. I have grown up, especially going through the healing process of all of that, through, counseling, prayer, just really, partnering with God. And yeah, getting through all of that. I believe I have come out the other side of it. There have been videos, I've talked about it, and I've like had tears in my eyes, and people will say, oh, God will heal your heart and all this stuff. And I really believe that, I'm sure maybe there is still more work to do, but I really do believe the vast majority of it, like I'm good. Like I've healed, I've overcome, I've gotten past it. Like that's a victory in my life. I've climbed Everest. I've put my flag on top. Like I really feel like I have moved past a lot of it. However, it's difficult stuff. So sometimes, yeah, I might still cry about it if I talk about it, because it's sad, because it's difficult, because it's unjust. Just like I had a miscarriage that completely devastated me, and I feel the same way. I feel like I've healed in a lot of ways. I've moved on. But if I think about it long enough, I will get sad. I'll cry about it because it's still sad. Even if you've healed the situation, the idea, it's still sad. And honestly, a lot of my grief in any of these areas comes from the fact that I know that while I have while I have moved past it, there are people who haven't. There are people who are still in the middle of it. And that is kind of where my heart is with a lot of that. All that being said, I definitely have perspective. I know about the power of gratitude. I know that if we can, so much of it, if I can just give you a tip from a survivor, if we can just get outside of our own heads and slide into like empathy and thinking about other people, so much of it does become healed. If we stop focusing on our own inner pain, stop scratching those scabs, stop poking those wounds inside of ourselves, healing can take place. I'm a firm believer that emotional, like people say you'll carry that for the rest of your life. I guess maybe to a point in that it did happen, but like, I have scars on my body, but the thing is my scars don't hurt. Yeah, like I have a giant scar on my knee from when I fell and I got cut, and like I have that, like I was little when that happened, and I have that scar on my knee, but it doesn't hurt anymore. But I can look at it and say, oh yeah, I remember falling off of that thing and cutting my knee. But if I poke it, it doesn't hurt. Like it's healed, but there's a scar. And so this idea of scars, it's like, well, scars, they're healed. Like it doesn't hurt anymore. But that's not to say that if you remember the event, you don't remember, oh yeah, oh, that hurt, or do you know what I'm saying? Anyway, I believe that emotional and spiritual things heal just like physical things do if we just give them time. If we, go through the process, if we can stop poking again, picking the scab, doing, we can stop reopening those wounds in our own hearts. And that's very difficult to do. But anyway, perspective wise, I can be super grateful that my kids they're not going through that. I have not passed on the buck of that abuse, that generational junk is not going to touch my kids. And they have a peaceful upbringing. They have beautiful, innocent childhoods. And I gave that to them on purpose. Oh my gosh, like we don't even fight in our house. Like I don't know if I could ever explain to you, like people say, oh, we don't fight. Like really, Adam and I do not fight in the house. Because of like peace, because this is what I've learned, and this is what we're teaching our kids, that disagreements are inevitable, but the fight is optional. It doesn't have to turn into a screaming match. It doesn't have to turn into yelling insults at each other or whatever. We can have a disagreement and we can discuss it like adults and not descend into that chaos. But that thing, I think, comes from having gone through what I have gone through and the chaos, and adults above me not taking responsibility for their own issues and their own hurts, and passing it down to the kids, or thinking that it's okay because of their pain and their issues to create a bad environment for me when I was little. And so I have a very, oh man, like that's kind of like, I'm like a daisical, and I'm sweet, and I'm nice, and I'm like peace and love, but there's certain things in my life where I have drawn that line in the sand, and this is one of those lines I do not cross. My issues don't make it okay for me to make another person miserable. I didn't mean to go there, but like, we can be grateful. It's just possible. It is entirely possible. Like I remember I remember clearly, actually, one time, and I'm not going to get into the details, but it was one of the most horrific experiences, one of the most terrible things I ever witnessed. I guess my father, I can say that. It was my dad. It was really the perpetrator of so much abuse. My mother, she was absolutely the victim, and she was a victim her whole life. She never, ever got past it. But it was one of the worst times I remember. Afterwards, like after the blow up happened, and then I was outside, I was on the back porch, and I was looking out, it wasn't like a trailer park, but it was a place with like mobile homes. It was very, like a very poor area. I can still see the super tall grass. Like it was up to like almost my forehead, this particular kind of grass. There were the big like industrial wooden spools. Like I used to play in and around those wooden spools. They were like in the backyard, chain link fences. It was just not like a pretty picture. But I do remember kind of seeing above all of that the most beautiful sunset I had ever seen in my life, emblazoned across the sky. And it was one of the first moments that I feel like God really spoke to me, that I looked up and I saw that gorgeous sunset, and there was something inside of me that just knew that it was this beautiful sunset, and it was just for me. Like he had made it just for me for that moment. I don't know, it's probably 5 or 6. I don't know, but just looking out and seeing that after all the horror that had just gone on in my home, and seeing that beautiful place or that beautiful sunset, knowing that. And I had that to focus on when my father came out and sat down and started doing the spiel, right? Of, oh, I'm sorry, like she just got me so mad, and like the whole thing that abusers do, where they tell you all their reasons and all their stuff, and they want you to absolve them of what they have just done, so that they can continue to, to sleep at night. I don't even know. And also I have absolutely forgiven all of it. And the reality exists, though, that this damage was done. So perspective-wise, in that moment, I had a beautiful thing to look at. I still remember that to this day. And that was in Texas, too. That was East Texas. So East Texas is not really famous for beautiful sunsets. Now I live in central Arizona. We are famous for beautiful sunsets. Oh my gosh, you would not believe the sunsets that we have here. And still, to this day, every single time I see a breathtaking sunset, which is pretty much every single time I'm outside and I see a sunset here, I'm transported back to that moment when it was just like, I was transported in that moment out of the horror of what had gone on around me. I saw something beautiful. And so I got a different perspective. But that doesn't mean, while I was grateful for that sunset, that doesn't mean that I'm like, oh, well, in that situation, I'm going to be grateful that I still had food on the table. I'm going to be grateful, for whatever. I had a TV to watch. I had, Tom and Jerry. Actually, I remember that. It was Tom and Jerry was what was on the TV when the blow up happened. And I ran and hid in my closet, I could be grateful that I had a closet to hide in. I could be grateful for so many things, right? There's so many things to be grateful for, right? My shelter and all of that stuff. I had a functioning bathroom. I had, you know, so many things that so many people on this earth don't have. And I could, you know, somebody could look at that and say, oh, be grateful, just be grateful for that sunset. Let's be grateful. Let's figure out ways to be grateful. And it's like, but there's abuse happening. There's injustice happening. Like both things are true. Like, so yes, it is true that I had it better than a lot of kids out there, which is horrific, honestly. When I think about that, it's like, you know, as horrible as my childhood was, I actually had it better than a lot of kids out there, which is like another reason that I'm never going to share this, you know, the super sordid details of exactly the things that I went through, exactly the things I've witnessed, exactly the things, because I feel like there ends up inevitably being like this comparison game. Like we want to compare and contrast and say, oh, well, somebody's going to say, oh, well, you didn't go through even close to what I went through. But then there's going to be another person who also went through horrors in their life who would look at me and say, oh my gosh, well, I didn't go through nearly what she went through. And they would belittle their own suffering. And so suffering is suffering. Wherever it shows up, you can suffer. It's possible to suffer wherever. And so we're not going to compare suffering. But this idea that we should just be grateful, like almost to the exclusion of feeling the anger at injustice, feeling the anger at basically what does amount to abuse, I feel, on like a global scale. It's abusive, these governments that we've had in place, tyrants in place, overreach of power, even if you're not in a place that had, you know, specific tyranny. I mean, we just barely kind of got through COVID, and now this is starting. We're still dealing with the ramifications of everything that happened during that, and abusive regimes during COVID, and excessive lockdowns, and excessive government on, you know, the population. Like, these things were abusive, and this whole thing where we're trying to create this new normal. And Adam has discussed this before too, like just recently at work, like in the last few weeks, they lifted the mask mandate. And so he, like a lot of people, and he said that he even caught himself being like, oh, this is so great to not have to wear a mask anymore. And it's like, no. We're not going to be excited about, I mean, you can be kind of excited, oh, I don't have to wear a mask anymore. But don't be like, this is some great privilege that's been handed down from on high. No, not wearing masks is normal. That is normal. The right to just like exist and breathe. And I'm not here to debate the efficacy or whatever, but understanding that no longer fearing dying from a global pandemic, but no longer being in that place and being able to walk around with like a naked face again is not a privilege. That is returning to the original place that we were. And so that's just the thing too, like with gas prices, now that gas prices are close to and even exceeding $5 a gallon, are we supposed to be grateful when they go back down to $4? And it's like, grateful, of course, that it's no longer $5, but recognizing that this is still unreasonable. Like, this is still not okay. And so I feel like it's really important that we are able to exist in this place where, yeah, like I said, like I have all kinds of experience with how beautiful gratitude can be to lift you out of the mire, to get out of your own head, get out of your own situation. And now I see a new perspective, and I am able to free my heart and heal and all of that. But like, I didn't just see the sunset and then stay where I was. Like, I also ended up, praise God, I got plucked out of that situation, and I was raised by my grandmother instead. And like, I was able to also experience a life without all of that shenanigans. Well, kind of. Never mind. We're not going to get into, like I said, there's not details. Just like, there's back and forth visitation. Like, I still had visitation with my, like, can you even believe I still had visitation with my parents? And so this went on for a really long time in my life. But anyway, so, like we can be grateful while also, and be upset about injustice. And I guess that's kind of the point where it's like, I don't want my gratitude, or like the call to gratitude, to be like turning a blind eye to injustice. That there are also things that need to be fixed. So like, as another, kind of overly personal example, well, not personal, but for my mother, like I said, she just never seemed to really recover or ever get better, because obviously not only did she suffer years of abuse and all of that, her child got taken away. Like, I recognized there was a huge sadness in her life. Like, anyway, but she later was kind of with another guy that was also abusive. But with him, it was all verbal. And I remember, like, at one point we were talking and I was trying to talk to her and be like, Mom, like, this is not okay. You shouldn't be in this situation. Like, it's not okay, And she's like, well, but I can't remember exactly what she said. And it was essentially something like, well, like, he's not beating me. He's not doing, he's not doing like all this stuff that my dad used to do. I was like, just because he's not like beating you doesn't mean that it's okay that he's this mean and that he's this verbally abuse. Like, that is still bad. Just because it's not as bad as the other thing, like, you can be grateful for the fact that the man is not beating you, but that doesn't make it okay for him to speak to you in this way, because it's like, I had heard some of it, like picking up the phone. Never mind, I won't get, sorry, we're not going to air the laundry, we're not going to get into the super details of it, but like, it's like, we're not going to start a Jerry Springer episode over here, but like really, like, this is not okay. And it's just a really difficult thing. And like, having that moment in my life where I was like, that was kind of where I started this whole thing, where I was talking about like the comparing of suffering, and where it's like, you can't really like compare suffering. All suffering is bad. It's all bad. Like, the further away that you get from what God intended, the more suffering there is, but it's all bad. You can't say, just because my family still has food, I'm not allowed to feel the injustice of rising gas and food prices and all of that. And also, and we're not even going to get into, like, if you go back and listen again to the post, like, all of the huge amounts of kind of, I don't know, like, I hate to use the word privilege, but like, the huge amount of privilege that is in those posts, like, well, I'm still going to support local restaurants so that I can support those families. And it's like, there are people for whom these rising gas prices mean that now they're deciding whether or not they're going to go to work. Like I could take a sick day and make more money because of how much it costs to go to work. Or grateful, I still have a car. And it's like, well, there are plenty of people who don't have cars and are not dealing with rising gas prices, who are also dealing with the injustice of rising food prices. They're taking the bus to go grocery shopping and paying way more than they ever used to. And now the hope of them ever getting cars is like so far beyond. So I don't know. This is just sort of my thoughts and my perspective. I don't really have like a solution, but like I said, I feel like these things can and should coexist, that you can have difficult emotions. I can be grateful and I can rage against injustice and I can pray. It's like, or else why are we here? Why did Jesus tell us to pray if we're supposed to just sit around like on a cloud, la 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 la, like, I'm gonna be grateful, I'm gonna be grateful, I'm gonna be grateful. Like, anyway. Yeah, and again, I don't necessarily think that these people were necessarily saying you're not allowed to look at injustice or whatever, but I feel like almost like that's now almost what's happening, is like there's a whole bunch of people who are like holier than thou and like taking the high road on all of this. Anyway, I do believe, like I said, I trust. I told my kids and I told Adam, we talked about it. We've already had this conversation. We will not be afraid of rising prices. We will trust that God will provide. and continue to get us through like he always has, and even not just get us through, like not by the skin of our teeth, but no, we will be thriving, we will be okay. And it's just going to have to happen, like, because that's what we believe is what he wants to do. Will it necessarily look the way that we expect it to look? I don't know. I don't know. I'm open to anything. I'm not gonna limit him by like praying specifics or assuming that it has to come from a certain place or it'll have to come from here or that or whatever. We're just in trust right now and in faith, and also in gratitude. We're so grateful for everything that we have going on. But as somebody who I feel is an intercessor, and if you're not like in, churchy terms, that's basically like somebody who feels that they have a calling on their life to see what's going on and then to pray about it. Because Jesus called us to pray, and he said, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. That's where I say, like, the further we get from God's will, the more suffering there is, because God's perfect will is joy and peace, no sickness, no death, none of this shenanigans. That is not what he wants. Where God has his perfect way, things are perfect, like in heaven, like in Eden, right? Anyway, yeah, it's so difficult. So yeah, these concepts are just like, how can you believe in a good God but there's so much suffering in the world? Being able to make these concepts coexist is, I think, something that is something that we all work on. And I guess really the very short answer to that is that, like, it's just that God's will is not always done on this earth. And I know that there's a lot of people who don't like that. They want to believe that it's God's sovereign will that they got cancer, or God's sovereignty, that their child was taken from them. And that is just not, I don't jive with that, because was it God's sovereign will that I was abused as a child? Was that like his will for my life? Or was it selfish people who should have been taking care of me that didn't? And again, I have forgiven. This is not a bitterness thing. This is a calling it like it was, because if we are not willing to face the issue, if we're not willing to face that problem, if we're not willing to face that reality, then history will repeat itself and we will just continue passing that down. If I want to put my head in the sand and not look, and then ruminate and stew in my own issues, then I might pass that down to my child. And with full compassion and with full forgiveness, I can look and say that my parents did not do right by me. And it's just a fact. It's not like a bitter thing to say. So I feel like we have a lot of things to face, and that's what I'm talking about. We're facing the injustice of the world. We're facing the fact that bad things are happening, and then we pray and we do what we can on the ground, if it's possible, to lend aid, to help, whatever. But yeah, that's also, I guess, why I have now come to the conclusion that prepping is actually brave. It's being brave. Because a prepper, they say preppers like live in fear. And so like we stock up on food and stuff. And honestly, to me, this whole, my family is safe and sound, I'm not yet seeking shelter from bombs. Like, I feel like forcing myself to be grateful and like, just being like, well, we're still okay. I feel like that is living in fear. That is at its, most extreme. And I'm not saying the people that posted these things are that way. I'm just saying, like, if you take that concept, that idea to its furthest, I don't know what word I'm looking for there, but like, if you take that idea, like all the way towards, where it's going, I feel like that is ultimate living in fear. That is putting your head in the sand. That's not being willing to look at what's going on because it's like too much to handle. Whereas when you have more of a prepping mindset, you're willing to look at it and you face it and you say, oh, wow, yeah, we do have a pretty fragile food system. While I pray that we never have a collapse, I'm also going to put some food away for my family because I recognize the fragility of this thing. When store shelves clear and people still don't prepare, that too, I feel like it's if it's not living in fear, then maybe it's just sort of ignorance. But I think a lot of times it does kind of go back to people not being willing to face the reality of what is possible. And again, like, even this is like a whole other video I want to make, but I'll just touch on it very briefly. Like, even biblically, like Joseph, right? He was OT Joseph, not stepdad of Jesus Joseph. I mean, like Egypt Joseph. He was told to prepare, right? Like, get grain stored up, right? They had 7 years of plenty and then 7 years of famine. And so they were told to prepare for that, and they put that away, and then they were able to feed and save people all around them. I just, yeah, it's like, and then this idea, again, I want to make a whole separate video on it, but like, there's a whole thing like where people are like not wanting to prepare, again, kind of going back to God's sovereign will. It's like they feel like, oh, well, if it's God's will, then I won't live. Or if it's God's will to provide for me, then he'll provide for me. And it's like, he also gave us a brain, like he gave us wisdom, he gave us the ability to look and like see and problem solve. And I don't know about you, maybe there are some people who exist like this, but I don't like wake up every morning and like ask God, what should I wear today? Now, there's definitely times when I've asked and I've been in my closet and I've been like, I got nothing. Do you have a cute outfit idea? Because I got nothing. Like, and there's times when I've just like almost like had it like that, but I'm not like asking for his perfect will in my wardrobe every single time. Like, I just put on clothes sometimes. I just like, all right, I just like do the things that I do in life. And but I know that there are people that kind of take it that far, but it's like, I don't know. I feel like there's a balance there too. I'll end on that idea. I'll end with a story I've heard before, and I know that other people have talked about it, where there was a guy in the story. It's a joke / story where he's like on his house, or he's in his house, and then like rains come, there's flooding happening. So flood comes, and the waters rise so high that he ends up on the roof of his house, and he's praying, God, please save me. Come save me, please. And so a boat comes, and the people say, hey, come on, let's get on the boat. We'll get you out of here. And the guy's like, no, it's cool. I'm waiting. God's going to save me. And so then, the boat goes away. And there were 3 things. I can't remember what the middle one is, but the last one is the helicopter comes, and the helicopter's like, the waters are rising, seriously. Like, you got to get out of here. You're going to be stuck or whatever. And the guy's like, no, it's fine. God will save me. And so the helicopter just has to leave. And then ultimately, it's very sad in the story. The waters rise, the guy drowns, and he gets to heaven, and he's like, God, I thought you were going to save me. Like, I prayed, and I thought you were going to save me. And God's like, I sent you a boat. I sent you a helicopter. Like, what more do you want? Like what? It's like this idea that it's like sometimes people get stuck looking for this like supernatural thing, and it's like, God is supernatural, but he's also kind of infinitely practical. Like, if you look at a lot of the like the laws that were set out were like sanitary laws in the Old Testament, things like that. So like, for instance, when the plague was raging through Europe, a lot of times Jewish communities were not having plague raging through their communities, so they ended up getting like blamed for the plague, but it was because they were still following like the sanitary laws and keeping their place clean, and they were healthier and they were not eating nasty meat, and they had, they were still eating meat, of course, but they were eating it like kosher, like in a more clean way, and so they weren't diseased like the people around them. So they ended up getting blamed for sicknesses and plagues all of the time because they were kind of following a lot of these practical rules. But it's like, yeah, this idea that God's will now, I'm, what am I, just like a limp fish, just like waiting for him to like tell me what to do? It's like, I don't know. Anyway, yeah, that can be a whole video in and of itself. Like I said, I'm going to end with that story, and I don't even know if that video is good or if I even said everything that I meant to say. I probably didn't, but yeah, it's getting closer. Oh yeah, it's getting closer to 6 now. I need to go make some food. It is actually Sunday, so both of my boys work at church, so I need to go make them some breakfast. We went last night. We go on Saturday nights a lot of times so that we can have Sundays free. Um, but yeah, anyway, I guess that's it. Hopefully that was helpful in any way. I don't know if it was or not. I feel like I'm going to post it without watching it, just because I feel like if I watch it, I might not post it. But I feel like some of it needed to be said. I feel like it's possible. Oh yeah, I said I was going to end. One more thought. I've tried in my life to stop saying but in a lot of situations. Like, I'm grateful, but I'm also angry. Like, to not say but, because the but is said to sort of negate the first thing. So I'll say I'm grateful and I'm angry. And, but anyway, ultimately, we're not anxious about anything, right? Be not anxious about everything, instead, through what? Prayer and supplications. Make your requests known to him, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. So, yeah, don't be anxious, but, I think a little bit of righteous anger is warranted in this situation, but not something that makes us bitter. Something that hopefully spurs us into action to alleviate suffering. That's like my whole life. It's the crux of my veganism. It's everything. It's just the desire to alleviate suffering. So anyway, all right. I guess that's it. As always, I hope the rest of your day is good and your life stays wonderful. See you guys in the next one. Bye. It's my mug. It's just, and a whole lot of Jesus. Just all I need is a whole, that's it. A whole lot of, you skip the coffee. It's actually not even coffee. It's a little turmeric probiotic drink, because vegan prepper, come on. This is the way I am.